Welcome to RiderChoices Tribe Talk. Tribe Talk is a dialogue with rider coaches for enhancing communications while helping develop and improve our culture. We share experiences and knowledge in our efforts to reduce the crash injuries and fatalities of motorcyclists.
There we are. Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to work my computer. Thank you.
You got a dog in the way.
I do. We got a puppy about a month or so ago. And he's pretty cute. I think so anyway. Had to compensate,
Yeah, I understand. Congratulations. That's the pinnacle, man. That's good stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was going to happen. I was the only seat for the field this year. So
you have a very small field.
Yeah, I do. Well, and many years go by where we don't have a seat. So I was very, very fortunate for it to work out. So I was moved here with the thought that we were going to finish up in Kentucky, but the Army has its ways, right? So
they know just when to hit you too.
Yeah, so it'll put me out 2 more years than what I was planning, but that's okay.
Well, then they'll give you another little cookie out there, and it's like,
what other cookie? I don't know.
Sergeant Major of the Army.
Nah, yeah, right.
The band dude.
The band Sergeant Major of the Army, right?
That would be cool.
Yeah, I don't think there's if they select me for Sergeant Major of the Army, they got some serious problems. So
well, you never know. You never know.
I would turn that down in a heartbeat. No, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want that kind of headache.
No.
But then it's, when you're given that kind of opportunity, if you turn it down, you got to be kind of nuts too.
I don't know, man. But if you're taking that, you're turning down other opportunities on the outside that would probably pay way better. So
see, I played that gamble, and I'm not sure it quite worked out the way I wanted it to. Because I retired like 1 day short of 22 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But my whole intent, because I'd been associated with the military since I was 17, there I had 26 years invested.
Yeah, I'm at 23 right now. I feel every bit of it. Yeah.
I was to the point where if I don't get out now, I'm never going to be able to have another career.
Right.
And I don't think I ever made it to that other career. I'm still kind of floundering out here.
Oh, well, I don't know if you're floundering. Maybe it's not what you envisioned.
It wasn't at all. Not at all.
Yeah. Well, I get to wait a few more years before I have to figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up. So I'm glad for that.
Well, I'm speaking for myself here. I'm never sure that you ever find what you're going to do when you grow up, if you're living life right.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's always something more.
Sure.
I know that you're pretty well read. Have you read anything by Neil Peart? Any of his books?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So I've read a lot, but nothing's ringing a bell. So
do you know who Neil Peart is?
It's not. No, I don't think so.
He's a motorcyclist.
Okay.
And a drummer for Rush, or was?
Oh, Neil Peart.
Peart.
I've always heard it as Neil Peart.
No, it's Peart.
Okay, Peart.
So, in many of his books, he talks about the phrase "What's next?"
Right.
And that's the deal. Is there's always something more. There's always another achievement, another place, another way to grow. And so I found that very inspiring, because every time I screw up and get put in a place where, I see that dead end, I usually just say, well, what's next? What's
right?
And it always comes.
Yeah. Well, it's always growing pains too, right? So the name, I saw a message on here.
I got it.
Yeah.
Neil Hurt. Yes.
His first book that I read was Ghost Rider.
Mhm.
And that was the book he wrote after he lost his wife and
Yeah.
daughter.
Right.
And that's when I really realized this dude could write. And since I read that, it's like everything I've seen come out from him. Got the library.
Yeah, he has a pretty inspiring story.
Quite. So it's random night, unless you can remember the 3 questions that I always forget. Neil's here. Neil's got something great to talk about.
I know where the 3 questions are.
No way.
What's next? What's next? And what's next?
No, that wasn't it. That was an old one.
Okay.
That was an old one.
What's a community of rider coaches? I think was the gist of one of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about your short little trip that you took this whole last summer?
Oh, sure. I hiked from Georgia to Maine over the course of 6 months, and recovering has been difficult.
Really?
Um, yeah, no, it was I got kind of used to it, hiking all day every day. Um, and it was real pretty, and just the it was like a good mindful exercise, I think, just looking at my feet and trying not to trip. Um, so uh I really enjoyed it, and I miss, like, you mentioned community, and they not everybody was a rider coach, but it was real nice to have folks around who were kind of thinking the same thoughts and working through the same challenges, and that was really uh motivating and inspiring. It's one of the reasons I came here today, just to uh, hear everybody's thoughts and help me process what I've been thinking about.
So how did it compare? The people on the trail, I assume a lot of people out there kind of in search of something, of one, either in search of or running from something, in life. How does that relate or compare to rider coaching?
Um, Good question. Everybody's trying to improve, right? Or to to change in a positive direction. Um, yeah, the trail's kind of famous for being a transitionary period. Um, but I would say the same thing about education and trying to teach people. It's like the job's never really done. It's just uh, comparing yourself to what you did yesterday and seeing um, what you can, uh, I don't know, do again, what new ideas you can try. I like this comment that Jason posted.
Day before yesterday, I decided that March 15th of 2025 is the day I leave Georgia. I'm gonna do it.
Have
If
you
I
guys talked?
Congratulations.
Because I was trying to get you guys to talk.
if I have any success, I'll complete it right before my 51st birthday.
Oh,
That
Thanks.
is amazing.
I appreciate the grunt of support, Don.
you know, I want to do it. It's on one of those bucket list things. But to do that, you have to, like, you got 1/3 physical, 1/3 mental, 1/3 spiritual. I have to give up everything else for that time period. And I'm the kind of person that I'm selfish in a way that I don't like giving things up, especially things like this that give me energy or charge my battery. So the commitment that you have to do that is something.
I'll have to pick your
You're
brain
telling.
because I'm super excited to find somebody related to somebody I know has done it recently.
Well, that's why you got to talk to Neil.
What's your start date again, Jason?
Hopefully March 15th of 25.
Nice. Are you how do you think it's gonna go?
That would require planning and forethought.
Who needs it?
Ideally, I'm probably about 25 pounds overweight right now, and I've got to get to work. I've started walking. I figure I need to get up to about 10 to 12 miles a day on flat here before I go, which isn't terrible. It's got to be better on my knees than some of the things I've done recently. But honestly, it's not even the end goal. It's just the next step. I've got wanderlust and have had it since I was, I don't know, 10, and I can't move for another couple of years, so I get a lot of leeway with my missus, and my kiddos are old enough that they could probably do without me for several months. They might even enjoy it, but I need to try something. I want to do the Triple Crown. I want to do the AT first, and then hit the PCT, and then hit the Continental Divide Trail last. So I figured I'm about to turn 50, and of course I think a lot of us look at that number and go, "Oh my gosh, it's almost done. I've got to do something worthwhile." And so I'm sure that's a big part of it.
For most people, I'd say 50, you're halfway there, but you've been in the military, right? So yeah, you're 3/4 done.
That's what I'm afraid of. And if it kills me, then I won't have to walk the other two.
I'm teasing. I'm wondering, because I thought about this the whole way, that I was thinking of you, Neil, as you were doing this challenging trip. Is, do you feel stronger physically, mentally, and spiritual now that it's all been done?
Good question. Uh, I feel exhausted. Like I've dropped my laptop. That yeah, it's like you hike 2,000 miles, and I'll speak to the physical part for a moment because it's a little bit more straightforward. But yeah, I think the human body wasn't quite meant to go through um uh such an extreme experience. Like I'm sure there's going to be lasting effects that aren't completely positive. Um, but uh, yeah, I think it forced me to strengthen myself, but sort of in a narrow uh like range, I guess. It felt very context dependent. And now that I'm out of that context, I feel uh, a certain serenity missing, and long for the hills, if that makes sense.
The challenge.
Mentally and yeah, uh, yeah, overcoming a challenge that large was really satisfying. It does min max, that's right. I am uh yeah, walking min max is a good way to put it. It was a very specialized skill set that I had, um, and I guess still have. But uh, yeah, I miss it. I don't know.
Well,
It was simpler.
I will tell you, it's quite an accomplishment. Um, I haven't done it, so I can't speak wholly to it, but I can only imagine, based on the miles I've walked in the military, that it is I can understand the gratefulness of getting to the end and saying, I just did that. What's next? What's next? And while you're waiting for that, what's next? You're kind of on the man. I can't wait for the next thing. It's the trial and tribulations. We can't appreciate the hard times if we don't have good times, and vice versa.
Neil, when did
I
you
fully
finish?
said that.
When was your finish date?
My finish date was October 7th.
Okay, so not too long ago then.
Oh, yeah, I just got back recently. About a month and a half, 2 months. And yeah, it's been great being back. My favorite saying is I've worn dry socks every day since I've been back, and that has
Uh,
really the quality of life that provides uh is great. The other side though is using the bathroom has become a more formal experience, which I have qualms with, but uh yeah, just getting back into like going that far and then being back in the same place has been uh I've been working through it lately.
That's what I was gonna ask was like I know that, and I don't know if anybody else on here does, but I know I have like a travel crash that I go through after I do such a big trip that I prepared for, and there was this height of like almost ecstasy, right? Like you're just like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing ever I accomplished, and then when you get back, it's like that travel crash that brings on all of the emotions, especially like numbness of like, well, what the hell. And you kind of go through like this numb stage of like there's just nothing really feelings, and you don't know if it's actual serenity, if it's depression, or if it's I have no idea. And so I was going to ask, how long did yours last, or do you feel like you're still in it, or
Yeah, there's the it's quoted as post-trail depression. And it's still in effect, on the tail end of it, I suppose. Um, but yeah, I think there's something to be said about like uh the level of like just things that were happening every day. And it can get scary or it could be really interesting or obviously challenging to a more stable surroundings. It almost feels boring. Like uh what am I doing here if it's not gonna get my heart pumping? But maybe I just need to ride a motorcycle. I don't know.
So
Every year I go to Spain or Portugal and I walk a Camino for a few weeks at a time. And and
Awesome.
and that experience, what you're just saying, especially that we call it the post Camino blues,
Mhm.
because all of a sudden now you have to interact with your life. It's so great to turn off your phone for a few weeks and, you know, have no other responsibilities except getting up in the morning and putting on your pack and walking. So post Camino blues, it's real, So I get you, but congratulations on that accomplishment. Awesome.
Thank you. And I appreciate the shared experience there. It is tough.
is it
And
anything like working hard all summer, wishing that the summer was over, and then when you have no more students, within a couple weeks, kind of getting that Jones to get back out there on the range and have students again?
100%. Like there's something important I could be doing.
how
I
isolated
wish
was
I
the
was.
100 Mile forest?
Can you repeat that for me?
How isolated did you feel going through that 100 Mile section with
Hmm.
no resupply?
Good question. So I was real worried about it going into it. Because yeah, it's 100 miles, and for me that was 5 days, but for some people it was longer. Yeah, no charging, no food resupply. If something goes wrong, like your ability to get into town or anything is really reduced. But I found it really enjoyable since it was right before the end. There's like a really calming feeling, and particularly the second half was really flat and beautiful, surrounded by lakes and rivers and things. Um, so I I felt isolated in the sense that there weren't like a ton of day hikers, like it was almost all through hikers. But uh I don't know, it felt kind of normal, honestly. Like it wasn't so stressful. It was like a victory lap, I guess.
Nice.
Like I was happy to be there. And yeah, one of my favorite, a real highlight of the trail, honestly, 100 Mile Wilderness. Maine, it's just such a gorgeous state. Um, oh my goodness. Yeah, I love Maine. I fell in a water crossing the first day. This is a tangent, but um, I was crossing a stream and I slipped and went like shoulder deep in it. It wasn't fast or nothing, but I was just mad I got wet. Um, and I was rolling cigarettes at the time, and all of my rolling papers got wet. Uh, so it was that was the hardest part of it, and that was on the first day. So I was like, bumming
Did
stuff
your
off
entire pack
people and
get,
trying to.
when you went
Sorry.
in, I assume your whole pack went in.
Uh, Let me think. I might have slid forward. Uh, my pack is pretty okay to get wet.
Okay.
Uh, I, but yeah, thankfully, maybe the bottom of my pack, but I had a pretty good like liner in there that stopped my like, down quilt from getting wet. But I don't
Neil,
know. Getting wet is part of the experience.
Neil, I have a couple questions for you. What led you to do the trip? The first question. And what the second one would be, what thing did you discover or learn about yourself that was unexpected? What is your biggest
Good
takeaway?
questions. Thank you. Um, the reason I started, uh, uh, like Jason said, wanderlust, just looking for adventure, looking for a bit of an escape, uh, and it seemed like the perfect place to do it, being such a long trail, um, and with such a great community behind it, I think as well. So I felt like I'd be really safe there and really connected, while still being on a, epic adventure. And your second question was, what did I discover about myself?
That was
Um,
unexpected.
that was unexpected. Uh, I feel like my social skills, and uh, I was really happy about my ability to make friends, and like feel like a part of a group. Um, I guess my self-image is maybe a little negative in that regard. Like I feel like I have trouble communicating. Um, but I found it really easy there, and I think the setting helped a lot. But just my ability to walk into a group of strangers and start chit-chatting and trying to find common ground and stuff. I think I was really happy to discover that I was at least had some level of skill.
Awesome. Thank you.
Do you think being a rider
Yeah.
coach helped you to bridge that gap a little bit?
100%. Being a writer coach was is such a like uh I feel like a party host sometimes, trying to just like make sure people are okay and see what they need. And I felt like carrying that energy, especially talking to completely new people, and as a rider coach, it's new people every class. I really think that helped me. Same with hiking. I didn't really do much hiking before trail, but being a rider coach, I had good calves coming straight in. Um, so in more than one way, coaching has helped me prepare for that.
Well, Neil, I'm going to share something with you, and I want to say I think it was you. Or where are you located at right now? Like, where do you live? Are you in
Virginia Beach.
Virginia? Okay, I'm trying to think of it. I want to say it might have been you. A while back, we were on a tribe talk, and I'm glad that you're on tonight. That I get a chance to say thank you. But sometimes on these calls, people say things and they end up in our heads and they like literally stay there, right? And like we hear them every time we go to do something, or they're just with us the rest of the time. But I do believe it was you that said something, and I have pondered it, and I've taken you onto the range with me many times. And we had a conversation about stopping with exercise 6 during the certain times. And I, as a solo coach on a compact range, is where I mostly coach. And I do believe it was you that said, because I said I was concerned about that starting with 9 did not give them opportunity to do a right turn practice. And you reminded me, no, they do. Right after they come out, when they stop at the cones and they turn right to do the S turn, they have to do a right turn. They have to literally move their handlebars and do the exact same move. So I want to say thank you, and I'm glad I have an opportunity to say thank you to you, because you have been with me since that conversation, and and so I'm glad I had an opportunity to say thank you tonight. But yes, so thank you for that you have been in my head, and you have been part of my range exercises. Every time I do end the day I do get a chance to, because the weather's been nice and we do finish, and as we start the day with exercise 9. And so thank you for that.
So
He's so happy.
I think all of this conversation has answered question number 1, hasn't it? Anybody want to expound on it?
I agree, because I mean, like I said, I take many of you, our conversations that we've had over the last 3 years or so. What is it, 3 years I think now?
At least.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed the difference, and once again, whenever I think Shu and I were talking one night, and I've noticed a difference when you guys aren't here in my head, and you aren't on. I don't see you guys on a weekly basis, or I mean every other week at least. Because I do solo coach a lot, and I need my community of people, of other rider coaches that are bought into doing this. And so I appreciate each of you, and that you bring into this, and I bring you onto the into the range with me every time. I mean, our conversations are right there in the midst of everything.
So I think this is also a great leap pad for talking about rider coach courage, because it takes a lot of courage to, just walk away from everything to walk a trail for 6 months. How would you define rider coach courage? What is courageous that we do?
Well, I'll say that, over the years, I've had candidates come through preps who really had to step outside themselves a little bit to meet the demands of speaking in public, and mustering the troops to come and get things done. That was not part of their maybe natural skill set, and so they had to apply themselves a little bit more to kind of get up to speed. And I think there are certainly occasions, we've heard about some of them here, on our chats, of coaches who are kind of swimming upstream a little bit with providers or other coaches who want to do things a way that might not be, per the curriculum, and having the guts to stick to it, I think is a way that coaches show their courage.
I think too, that when you have somebody who doesn't belong there and taking the courage to help them find that spot and to make the determination that not everybody is meant to ride, but what a better place to find out than there on the range, or going through the process and then having the courage to help them find that, or helping them work through some different things and finding courage within themselves to actually complete it. So it can go both ways. Over.
Roger.
I think that being self-critical and looking for ways to be better takes courage.
Yeah.
You want to go deeper on that, John? Because
self-improvement.
That's pretty deep.
I think it's a cornerstone of any good self-reflection and good commitment to actually getting better, is having the courage to say that I'm not necessarily as good as I want to be at the thing that matters a lot to me, and so I want to get there.
I like that, John.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I also think it's courageous to speak up against not against, but to talk to your co-coach, to have the courage to say, I didn't like what you did. Why did you do that? Or, calling them out and maybe providing a chance for yourself to learn, okay, I did that because of this, or help just say something that you see is not potentially right.
Well, it's also if you're trying to get back in the swing of things. I just hired on a rider coach who I had taught for almost 2 years, and he kept asking for my help for this first few classes, and I slowly get it more and more, and he greatly appreciated it.
Justin, I love your conversation. I was going to say very similar. I've learned to say, help me understand why you did it that way. All right. And that's definitely been the best way that I know that I've learned. And it takes courage. That for me, that's been a courage thing, right? It's because I would either just blow off the handle or completely go into shutdown mode and be like, whatever, go do your own thing. I'm going to go throw cones. You go talk to the students. But I think having the courage to be able to look at my fellow rider coach when I do dual coach with them and say, help me understand why you do it that way, or help me understand why, yeah. And so, because it may end up being a really good reason why, but yeah.
So you
It
just
takes a lot of courage to acknowledge our own limitations where we need improvement. That's very courageous in some instances.
You touched on something I think is kind of important, Belinda, and it's taken me, I'm getting older. And as I get older, these things, you have these epiphanies that you go through, and you were talking about getting angry and walking away. And so with your background, why do we get angry? What is that a sign of? And why do we put that barrier of anger up there when something frustrates us?
Well, that's a term. So anger is the emotion. I always want to know what the emotion is behind the anger, right? What is the micro emotion that leads to that? Anger is a socially acceptable emotion to have, especially if you're a male in the society. That's like the only socially acceptable emotion that you're allowed to have.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I've been screwing this all up.
Oh my goodness! Look, no, and
I've been using sadness and happiness.
No, that's what we're trying to change. We're trying to get them to be understandable that it's okay to have all of those, And but yeah, I know for me, whenever I get angry at something, I remember texting you a few years ago, about 2, 3 years ago, whatever. And I mean, I dropped the F-bomb about bajillion times on that phone, that call. And I was like, what is wrong with this person? I'm so mad. I'm so angry. And Justin, that's where after my phone call with Dawn and then another rider coach, another mentor of mine, I was like, that's where I had to learn that conversation of help me understand why you do this, to another rider coach. But because I was so frustrated and I was sad is what it was. I was really sad that this person had been being a rider coach for so long and he still did not understand people. And so I always want to know what the emotion is behind the anger. So,
So one of the things that I've learned about my anger is I'm usually angered because something's not working the way I want it to be. So it's a reflection of me, generally, not the person that I explode to. And once I realized that, I don't get angry anymore, because usually if I'm angry, I turn to myself and say, Don, stupid, why are you angry? Because it didn't work out the way I wanted to. And so usually I see anger in people as a barrier to, I don't want to talk about this, because it's an acknowledgement that I didn't get my way or I just screwed something up myself. And I think about that, helping me to understand what other people are doing. Like you said, can you help me to understand that? If they get angry with me, then I already know that we have to have a deeper discussion. If I'm getting angry with them, then I'm not looking at it the right way. Does that make sense?
Dawn, we're talking about courage, and I think we just saw a great example of it. Thank you.
What do you mean? Neil, on
What
that
you just
trail for
said.
6 months?
No, talking about what causes you personally to get angry and stuff like that. That is in front of a large group, especially. That's not easy. Thank you.
Well, I've cried in front of a group of men, so everything else is easy now.
DJ, I love that you said cry, because I'll throw that question out there to everybody about courage. And I guess maybe not only as rider coaches, but in our students too, like the courage to cry in the midst of a class, right? Like I had a lady, it was funny, she had one of my students, my last class, she was so frustrated. Talking about anger, I mean, like she was at that point of, like, my husband was like, I thought she was gonna hit me with her helmet when she threw it down, and I was like, yeah, good thing you dodged quickly. But she was mad at herself. But when she started crying, one of the guys was like, oh, don't do that. And I'm like, no, let her cry, leave her alone, let her do it. And I'm like, trust me, there's been many tears on this range, half of them mine. And I'm like, don't let them cry it out. And so I love it. And like I said, but my husband does tell people when they ask him what I do, he says, I make people cry for a living. I get paid to make people cry because of all the things that I do. And I literally make people cry. But I love that you said that about tears, because I mean, those are good. I mean, I'm going to encourage them.
I cried for a year once.
So let me get this straight. We're supposed to make our students cry then.
I hope
According
so.
to Belinda.
I hope so. I hope you have a student at least once a month cry on you. I hope you do.
Oh no, at least once an hour.
Oh, there you go.
If I don't make them cry that often, I feel like I failed.
I've heard that about you, Matt.
My final exam week is next week, and I guarantee I'll have at least 2 of those guys in tears.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty horrible.
I'm usually in tears when I'm around Jason, so I can confirm.
He made me cry. It was that or the rain. I can't remember. I'm serious. I cried for a year once. Like every day, I had tears flowing because I had bottled stuff up for so long that once it released, it wouldn't stop. And everything that touched me emotionally from that point on, it's still pretty close, but from that point on, there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't see, a puppy dog run across, and then the tears come out. Oh, it's so cute. It was the best of times, the worst of times, but it changes your life.
I think they call that being vulnerable.
Oh no, I'm not vulnerable. I'll never admit to that. That'll make me angry.
Oh, talk about courage.
So I think we got to the point on that one pretty quick too. I think the courage of us being able to talk and be vulnerable with each other, that's kind of something I think we should strive for. Because how else are we going to learn?
I think
Go ahead.
I think being vulnerable helps us to be approachable, that people realize that we are just like them. We have our foibles, we fail, we get up and we can learn from that and to grow, and just showing resiliency, of being resilient. I think that takes a lot of courage as well. And to say it's okay to be human, it's okay to be flawed, and that you can still go on. The world doesn't come to an end if you're not perfect.
I wrote down a note earlier today. I was listening to a book while exercising because I'm getting lethargic. And the author was talking about turning points in his life. And so this is a memoir of somebody who's now in their 70s, who's lived a very rich life. And he says, I look back and there are things I just can't remember. Like, he had a several month period where he's a musician. He played with this other person in the band, and all he can remember about that person was the name when he came into the band and when he left the band, because those were turning points in what went on. And there was photographs in his mind of that moment that the person entered, and the time that person left his life really clued him in on his memories at a more advanced age, were snapshots in time. And most of those memories were just those turning points where something came or something went, when he was extremely low or when he was extremely high. And I thought that was insightful, because I can map out my rider coach career the same way. Those turning points. I'm never going to do that again, or I'm quitting. This is too tough. And then, a couple months later saying, I can't let it beat me. I got to come back and learn more and be better than I was. So those are all points that we remember. And I think it takes courage to look back at both our failures and successes and move forward from there. What was the third question tonight?
How would you define rider coach responsibility?
I'll take a stab at this one. One of the things I do for volunteer work, I'm a CASA advocate, and in this particular instance in Texas, I work with children in the Child Protective Services system, and all children have a guardian ad litem, which advocates on their requests. And in certain circumstances, the court will appoint see if I get my Latin and law terms correct, I'm sorry, the attorney ad litem is advocates on the child's requests and direction, and the guardian ad litem, which not every child gets in the system, advocates on what's in the best interest of the child. And I think that a lot of that falls into what we're doing here. Now I've lost my train of thought. So could you please, Belinda, repeat the question? I blanked. Where'd you go? I've been abandoned in my moment of
Yeah, I
need.
was like, how would you define rider coach responsibility?
Okay, thank you so much for getting me back on track. I find I do this more and more
No,
often.
hey,
I'm
look,
kind of
sometimes we
scared to
gotta go
wander
back.
off on this trail.
Gotta go backwards before we go forward. I'll say, tell me what we were
Indeed.
talking about before. So gotta go backwards before we go forward.
So I think
you were taking care. You take care of your. Are you a guardian ad litem themselves, or are you?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
That's
a tough. That's a tough thing.
It is for sure, especially this one. But that aside, I think I think as a rider coach, our responsibility is not necessarily in line. It's not congruent with what the students want, which is to go in there and get their endorsement. I frequently find myself telling my students that I don't care if they get an endorsement or not. I would like to see them be successful in their endeavors, but that's a decision they'll make on their own somewhere after the class is over. My responsibility is to expose them to as much opportunity to ride safely and reduce risks, so that if they get licensed, or if they choose to ride without a license, they've been exposed to this and have a better opportunity to make good decisions so that they come home to their significant other, their kids, their parents, their dog, the Chase guy, the Citibank guy. And usually that part gets a laugh out of it, but I think it's our responsibility to advocate for what's in their best interest, not so much as what their desires are.
So you said one thing that somebody jostled me today about, and it has to do with helping people be safe. Can we help people be safe?
We can help expose them to scenarios where they can make better choices to be safe. We can't be safe for them.
Yeah, we can help shape the executive functions that are required to do that.
So somebody wrote this today in one of the groups I was in. It says that there was talk about helmets and the effectiveness of helmets. And he said, while reading the article, it uses the reference safe, which is not true. It does in many ways reduce risk and is likely to cause risk that is likely to cause traumatic head injury. But the definition of safe is without risk. And so when we say we want to make it safe for students without risk, that's probably not going to happen. But we could inform them so that the risk level is reduced and they could have better judgment and lower their risk levels. But to make them safe is probably not the best term. That's why a lot of people say rider safety. I prefer rider education over rider safety. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, exactly right. When I talk to my students, I talk to them that I'm trying to get you to understand the risks that are involved in riding a motorcycle. And I'm hoping that through our discussions, it will help you change your behavior to where you're going to be thinking about the consequences and the risks that you're taking based upon the skills that you possess. And my goal is that you'll make the right decision for yourself based upon that information. Like you say, we can't make them safe. We can't make them ride better or be more aware when they go out on the street without us. So my goal is to get them to think about the consequences. When I talk about gear, I always say you only need to wear protective gear on the skin you wish to keep. And that kind of drives home the fact that protective gear actually can help save my skin. So the goal is, for me anyways, is to get them to think about the consequences and the choices that they're making. And hopefully they'll make the right choices for themselves.
I just had a flashback. Thank you, Don. The without risk. That was a whole section in the old RSS that you discussed.
And
it still holds true. It definitely holds true.
so you've got several people in here that are on 3 versions beyond MRC RSS. Can you share a little bit of your remembrance of what that was?
Well, I mean, again, you discussed and you went deep into protective gear to try to help them understand that you're trying to lessen the risk. You're not taking it away, of course, but you're trying to lessen the risk where, you know, I mean, you would actually bring a helmet into the class and a jacket and a pair of gloves and talk to them about boots and protective gear and things. You would spend 15 or 20 minutes just on gear. Now it's not as in depth. I'm trying to be correct here. It's glossed over, in my opinion, versus the way it used to be. You know, I mean, you can discuss, we still have the helmets showing, you know, the percentage of contact and hits on the helmets, you know, full face versus a half, and where we are in Massachusetts as a border state to New Hampshire, which is a state, there's no helmet law. So you get into that whole, you know, discussion of people who you're not going to take their rights away, but you're just trying to explain to them that, you know, this is going to help protect you to a degree. Is it going to save you? You hope so. Is it guaranteed? No. But that, you know, to lessen the risk, isn't that a big purpose of what we're doing? Why we're doing what we're doing? To lessen the risk for people versus the self-taught person. You know, some of us old guys still remember, you know, don't use that front brake, you'll go over the handlebars. You know, hearing that whole adage, right? And Don's laughing because we're the same age.
What? I'm so much younger than you, I'm sure.
I retired in June, buddy. Finally. But you know, it just, I don't know. You're trying to do the best that you can with what you've got, to explain to these people that, you know, those high top Converse sneakers that you're wearing, it's not just the impact if the bike goes over on your ankle, it's the burn. You know, I mean, it's just, in my opinion, I think we should be doing more on the gear and that side of the safety aspect than just, you know, let out the clutch slowly, through it, not to it, you know.
You know, if we had more than 10 hours on the range in most places, it would be different. If we had more than, you know, 5, 6, 7 hours in the classroom, it would be different. And unfortunately, the systems that we work in, that's acceptable for them now.
Well, we don't even know if the person that's handing you the certificate that they did the online class is the person that actually did it.
I'm not so worried about that because I wouldn't take a 5-hour course online for anybody. There'd have to be some money involved, I guess. But it shows relatively quick when they show up and they don't have the knowledge base that they should carry in with that. And I'll go to Robin's not here. You know, he recently had somebody he let go in exercise 1. You know, it's some things are really foreseeable at that point. I trust people some. Go ahead, Byron.
You just said the word that I've been thinking about. You trust people. And I'm going to go back a little bit and bring it to what we've been talking about. So bear with me for a second. We were talking about vulnerability earlier with our emotions, and that made me start thinking about not only being vulnerable, but also being transparent as coaches with our other rider coaches and with our students, meaning that we are transparent in why we are doing what we're doing, why we are asking questions that we're asking, why are we asking things of students, and all of that. So, and that really comes just down to trust, right? Because trust is the foundation of all relationships. And I think trust, can answer all of our questions that we've postured tonight. So trust is built through shared experiences. And in leadership, they teach that everything we do and say either builds or erodes trust. Not only what we do and what we say, but how we do things and how we say things. And we have to, well, let me say our first question is let me go back to it, is how would you describe the community of rider coaches? I think it first and foremost has to be a community of trust. Okay. How would you define rider coach courage? I think it is extending that trust to others, to the students, to the other coaches, until you have a reason not to. Okay. And that's when, maybe a situation like what you were just mentioning comes, and we have to, let somebody be counseled out. But also we have to maintain that trust of MSF. We have to continue to invest in that trust, that relationship. Every rider coach has a responsibility to say and do things in a way that builds trust. And I think that is how I would define the rider coach responsibility. And it's trust with, like I said, each other, trust with the students, trust with the organization, trust within the motorcycling community. Everything we do on the range, is this something that is investing in trust, or is it something that is going to jeopardize that trust that we have? And we're just talking about the precious time that we have with our students, which is so little now. Everything we do and say needs to count, and it needs to build. We want those students to trust us. We want them to trust our advice and opinions and what we're saying in the cards. And I think that is one way, maybe not the way, but a way to summarize the questions that you posted tonight, Don.
I didn't make that connection, but I see it. And I think with trust, there needs to be an authenticity to have that trust. And you've been in conversations with people where you're just like, man, don't smile at me like that when I know you mean something totally different. It's trying to be nice about that. Or, don't try to sell me on something.
Mm-hmm. But being nice doesn't necessarily always build trust, right?
No.
Right. Authenticity, being genuine, being authentic, and transparent. That's kind of where that came from. Those are things that build trust with other people.
Deep, very poignant. Very poignant. I like that. I wrote notes for you, or because of you. Relationships and foundations. That's do we get better as a community with those relationships? I mean, look at we've had 30 plus people in here tonight, just kind of laying it out there. I think that's important. I think we need more. But
I think
that.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk on top of you, Don.
No, go ahead.
I think this is a community with shared values, and that probably makes it easier to build a trust in this group. and that type of stuff matters, and I think even within this community, on Tribe Talk is very different than when you're out on a range with maybe a new coach that you haven't worked with. It's there's a degree of assumptions that I think the folks on this chat can make with each other about what our values are, and that helps that relationship and those bonds build a little more quickly.
Agreed. So how do we spread it?
I think by expressing in authentic ways, that second question, I think that's where the courage comes in, Dawn, that we don't present a different person here of ourselves, don't present a different version of ourselves here in this group than what we do out in the range, or maybe vice versa, right? Make sure that this is the mindset, and this is the best version of us, let's say, is right now in this group, right? As rider coaches, that we have that courage to maintain that even when it's with a rider coach or challenging students that we don't agree with. That's where the courage comes in to maintain that, and that's where we really have to choose to be authentic. And if we don't, we are eroding that trust. Even though it might be easier in the moment, it's not going to build a foundation to rely upon later. And I think that's what spreads it, and people will be drawn to that authenticity and that genuine passion for what we do. People can smell when it's fake, and they're not going to want to be a part of that. But if we can express what we express in this environment with others, they will be drawn to it. That's what I believe.
I was giving Carol Ann, and I should have given Joanne a little bit of grief today, because them and a couple other people went out and loaded up the new Facebook page with inviting people in. And I swore to myself when I started the new Facebook page was, I'm gonna make sure everybody's a rider coach, and we're going to show courage on this page. When people ask questions, we're going to give them answers, whether they like to hear them or not. And so I was harassing them, but I think that shows the type of people that are in this room, in the fact that they go out and say, "Hey, I'm going to bring more people in," and that's what I think we need to do. Is we need more people to be a part of the discussion. And so one of the meetings I had today with SMSA, the State Motorcycle Safety Association, happened to do with Motorcycle Safety Program Committee, where we're writing some recommended standards for how we run rider education in the United States, including how to administer, what rider coaches, mentors, rider coach trainers, quality assurance people should be like, what the curriculum should support and uphold. And we started talking about a community of practice where the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, NHTSA, is revamping what we call NAMS, the National Agenda for Motorcycle Safety. But not only NAMS, but the administrative standards and the curriculum content standards. So all these things are being changed at the federal level. And there is what they call a community of practice. If you are involved with rider education, you can be involved in the groups that are distinguishing what these standards are going to be. And they're going to have big dialogues and big discussions. So sit back. This is going to be fun. There right now is 140 people who have signed up to be a part of this. Think of the discussions we have in this room, because we kind of know each other. A lot of people that are here come back again and again, and you develop those relationships, and you learn, when Don gets that look on his face, that's because he's like, just hovering off his seat or something. But imagine putting 140 people in a room to discuss one of these topics. And I'm just wondering, is it going to go well with NHTSA? All of us have different agendas and different ways of looking at things. And it's kind of scary. But when you build a group like this, it's almost easy, isn't it? I'm rambling.
Yeah, just an FYI, Don, everybody that I invited is a active rider coach.
You say that. I checked them all.
He's
Yeah,
sitting here checking them all because he's been texting me telling me that some of mine are not listed. And so I'm sitting here going through Retzar going, why aren't they listed? So he is checking them.
You guys aren't the only ones. I've turned back 5 or 6 today that was like, really? They used to be rider coaches. They aren't anymore. Or I can't find any information on this dude. Are you sure he's a rider coach? I want everybody to be, to gain from this.
So when it comes to the NHTSA thing, you've got to give NHTSA the opportunity. I mean, I want them to see how difficult it is for educators and rider coaches and curriculum developers to work cooperatively. I'd love for NHTSA to realize how difficult it is when they're looking at not just MSF curriculum, but also at other curriculums that are out there, and perhaps even look at it and go, this is really hard. This isn't a one size fits all, and this is really hard, and we have to do more rather than we need to do less.
So a little bit of history, and correct me if somebody knows it's different. They put out a contract to do the rewrite of these 3 different documents, the NAMS, the administrative standard, and the curriculum standard. And they put this contract out to a company who has the government contract. They're making huge amounts of money on this. And they brought together people to talk about it. I mean, important people like, Dr. Oakes and, people from SMSA, people from the states. They brought all these people together and they were like, there's no way we can accomplish this in the amount of time you want with the amount of meetings you want, because it all has to be rewritten. It has to be discussed openly. And it's very hard for a small group to do this in the time you've allotted. So instead, they pulled that contract back, pushed out another one, and said, well, we're going to do it, but we're going to do it as a community of practice. So now we have 140 people in this community of practice that are going to get together, maybe 4 or 5 times in the next couple of years to talk and distinguish how it all should be. And I wonder how that's any better. Typical government. I'm kind of down on government right now. I'm sorry.
A quick question. Besides the MSF curriculum, how many other curriculums are out there in the United States? 5 or 6, 10, 12? I've lost count. I honestly don't know anymore.
So there's probably a solid 5 or 6 other curriculums that do the same thing. And then there's, and this is the interesting part, and these things I talk about, now we're getting into the Don's opinion area for what it's worth. Take it with a grain of salt.
Let it rip. Go ahead.
They're all the same. They all are based on the same principles. They have to be, because the document says it has to include all this stuff. So the approaches are essentially the same. And so when you have these 5 or 6 or, however many different curriculums they're all doing the same thing. They're all doing similar methods to get to the same place, because, there's only one way to squeeze in a clutch and let out a clutch, right?
Yes.
I mean, you may talk about it differently, but the action, the motor skill we're developing, you use different words, maybe, I don't know. But the bottom line is anytime anybody makes an advance, everybody else is watching and coming along too. So, you know, a national standard, as important as it is, it's not really going to change a whole lot. So the reason why standards change is to either put barriers or to take down barriers for groups to be apart.
I had asked about a standard many years ago. Similar to, like, I have a commercial driver's license, so I can drive a commercial vehicle in any state. And it's a standardized test. It's a standardized, it's all standardized. Why isn't this? And people just looked at me like I had two heads, like I was trying to be the problem child. And now it seems like it's come around full circle that this is what they want to try to do.
But the standards have been out there. The original NAMS was published in 2000.
Right.
That gave the framework. And then every couple of years after that, they build upon the framework and defined it better. So the standards have always been there. People don't go out and find them. When I was a baby rider coach, I didn't go out and search for that stuff. I could barely understand the rider coach guide. I was into that. But once you develop and you want to know the why, we had Tribe Talk last night, and one of the attendees last night and I have been kind of back and forth all day, him asking me questions and me trying to mentor and give information back. And one of the questions, where was I going? Oh, how do I get better? Well, we all have to learn the same stuff. I need to know what my rider coach guide says and be well informed of what's in the cards. Don't trust my memory, but read the cards. But once you get to that point where you understand what the standards are, the rider coach guide is, and everything that you're using as a tool, then you want to understand why. Well, why do I do this? The cards say this. Why do they say that? Where did that come from? And the people that search those kinds of things out, why is it? What's the root cause? Why? Oh crap! I just lost. There's back. Why do we do it this particular way? What led us, under safety and risk assessment, adult accelerated learning, motor skill development, and the 4 riding subtasks? What led the authors of this and the people that are using it to doing it this particular way? What was the trail? Where are the breadcrumbs? What books support it? What research says that? How did it come out of the book that they wrote in 1974, the motorcycle task analysis? I had to look at it. How did all that stuff happen? How does NAMS, the National Agenda for Motorcycle Safety, that was written in 2000, kind of halfway through this period, how did that all get there and why? Who is trying to make money off of it? Is always my first question. Who is trying to make the money? Follow the dollar.
Who's footing the bill?
Yeah. How's the money flowing? Who's getting it? That's as much about the why as anything, I guess. That's my pessimistic view. I'm sorry. But once you understand those things and you put them all together, then you're like, okay, now I know what the playing field looks like. I know what the rules are. I know what I'm up against. How do we make it benefit the student? The motorcyclist, the future motorcyclist, the rider. That top-down student development for those of you who were here last night. How do I make it work for them? All right, I'm talking too much. I know Chris had a question.
I did. So for many of you here, I'm not sure of your experience with professional development in your rider coach career, but if you would, I'm kind of looking for different types of topics that could be engaging or help you continue to grow in your rider coach careers, or even for other coaches for that matter. Things that you'd like to see be done in a professional development type setting. Think of these things as no more than an hour, maybe 2 at max, just to continue to grow. I know this platform that we've had over the last couple of years has had lots of great topics, and I look forward to helping Don get a couple videos out of the way of tagging these things in these as we discussed last night. But if you got some topics, just hit them up. If you need to clarify a little bit, that's cool too. I just want to take notes on my end. The reason why I'm asking is I'm getting ready to sit in on a board of like-minded individuals here within our state, where we're going to kind of develop a topical guide of different types of PDWs, so that every time you show up every year, it's not just how to score a BRC or BRC2 or anything like that. So I'll open it up with that. And I thank you in advance for your assistance.
Chris, just to clarify, you're talking about things in person or digital?
Either.
So one thing that came up a couple of weeks ago that I think could be interesting, at least perhaps more, especially more for, maybe this is more of a newer rider coach thing, but applying ochre, right? Everyone always will immediately say, oh yeah, just follow the cards, right? And all the stuff. But, you know, Robin, I think, brought up a situation a couple of weeks ago when we talked where, you know, a student comes down in exercise 4, they pop shift it, they forget to use their clutch, and they stall at the end. What's the feedback you give them? What's your what's your 10 seconds? And what's your 6 words? And I think it'd be interesting to workshop some situations. You know, hey, you see this in this exercise. How do you want to handle that? I think that would be kind of a very hands-on, boots on the ground type of practical, useful thing to talk about.
Thanks. That's a pretty cool idea. I'm already starting to brainstorm a lot of different ways to do that.
Some stuff, Chris, you might want to think about. Are you speaking specifically to MSF rider coaches? As a rider coach myself here, I teach MSF far less than I teach a different curriculum. But while there are many things that are very similar, there are some things that are very different. So getting up and speaking about something about maybe how your words for releasing the clutch, for example, may be very different than outside of MSF. So is your audience MSF or?
We have both in the state. We have TC and MSF. Only one of the programs in the state is total control, though.
Okay. Yeah, I know with total control, we do not use MSF words.
Chris, as a new rider coach, I've brought this up in the past and didn't get the response that I was hoping for. So I'm going to bring it up again. There's many times when I'm trying to understand whether I'm doing something right or not correctly. I don't have a reference to go back to. I try to remember my RCP, how I think the rider coach trainer was trying to teach me how to do it, but I don't remember it, and I don't have something to reference to. A simulated practice demonstration. What's the best way to do it? It'd be nice to have a video library that says, this is one way that we think it would be correct in order to do it. Apply your own personality, apply whatever, but here's the main points that you should be doing. A demo, a ride demo. I've had this discussion with other coaches saying your demonstration was not as good as it could be. Okay. Can you help me understand it? And I've seen, I guess the one thing I've seen that bothers me is when I went through RCP, they encouraged us to do it as a novice would do it. Yet some of the examples that I've seen from more experienced coaches is, watch me, I can do this really good. And then the students are going, I can't do that. That's not within my skill level. And of course, if someone has never swung a leg over a motorcycle, asking them to do it that way. So some sort of resource, a video, I learned by watching, that you could go to and say, hey, I want to improve on this point, pick an exercise, whatever step, whatever it is, whether it's staging or counseling or simulated demos or the ride demo themselves, and be able to go to it and say, I can sit down and watch this. And if I could emulate that, that would be a baseline for my performance or for my skills. Okay. And then move forward with that. And I don't know, I'll just throw it out again, and maybe it'll fall on an acceptable crowd as opposed to past times that I've done it.
Well, whatever our end product is, I'll make sure you get a copy of it, Bill. Go ahead, Tony.
All right, since I have no experience with total control, what's the difference between the two and the quote, the MSF words?
Well, I am not total control. Maybe Bernadette will be able to chime in and help us out. Just a couple of them, Bernadette. We don't have to go through the whole entire library, of course.
I would like to answer that, but I'm not going to.
Oh yeah, I forgot total control's a little protective over their stuff.
So a lot of it has to do with the copyright and making sure that one curriculum can't be confused for another. And there's also the fact that people believe certain things differently than other. And, the only example I can think of off the top of my head, because I'm not well versed in total control, is, the use of trail braking and leaning into a corner and, moving your butt a little bit off the seat. Not something I would teach a beginner rider. In fact, with all the books I've read on trail braking within the last year and a half, it's not a technique for somebody who has not developed fine control of the motorcycle's controls.
Yeah, because we only talk about that in the ARC.
Well, we lead up to it, and expose it in the ARC, but in all the books from all the professional riders, and if you look at the post I did several weeks ago, and you read below what all the professional riders said, all those riders are writing books about being racers. And so when you apply that to being a normal rider on the road, I spent 2 weeks this year kind of working on my trail braking to try to figure it out how I could translate trail braking to somebody who is no longer a novice rider, maybe an intermediate rider. And I can do that, but when I'm riding on the road and I'm using the appropriate behavior of following the speed limits and staying within my lane and not going over lines and stuff, I can't get the speed up to do it. I literally have to force myself to carry too much speed into the corner so that I could trail brake it at, all the way through to the apex and roll out at a higher rate of speed. And so when I say I literally have to force myself, the only way I can do it is to go over the posted or the recommended speed limits. So if you're teaching the technique, what are you teaching people? My opinion. So the different curriculums have different ways of looking at stuff. That's what I was trying to get at.
So getting back to what Chris was asking about and topics for PDWs, I think we walked right up to it, but I'm not sure if it ended up on the list or not. Counseling on. I think that's one of the hardest things to do, especially as a brand new coach. I struggled with it for a while, and I think there's an opportunity there for some folks. You could even do it as a role play or something like that. I know I come from a sales background, so that's normal for us, but it can be helpful.
It's like most everything else, though, there is no hard and fast rule, but discussing it in a PDW can really open some minds, and that's a good way to go. Another thing that you might think of, Chris, is going back to one of the questions tonight. What are your responsibilities as a rider coach from the basic, what does it take to keep your license, to, in this group, we consider our responsibilities to be way above that. You understand where I'm going here? The scope of responsibility from being a basic rider coach to being a great rider coach.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, some of you out there, come on, let's hear it. What are those things that are going to keep you engaged the most if you had to sit and discuss rider coach stuff? And maybe it's even not rider coach stuff.
What about range efficiencies? How to be more efficient on the range? What are some tips and tricks that people used to reduce their steps or to be more efficient with the time or riding time? We're trying to maximize the riding time. Taking them back to staging all the time is not necessarily the most efficient or the way to get the most riding time, but other things that stays within the regulations, I guess.
Yeah, safe, effective, efficient for your students, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're doing EP1, what do those conversations look like? How are you bringing that content to life, when you have those discussions with your students?
One of the things that I was looking at was in level 2 curriculum, we used to have the slides, and it would be a situational thing, and you would have to pick out different things that were happening situationally on a slide. And for me, as a new rider coach, it would have been really helpful for me to see a lot of the common things that we see as rider coaches early on, so that I could pick those out as somebody, if I had a video of somebody coming down the chute, so that I could pick them out and go, oh, yep, I just saw that. Yep, this is the kinds of things that we saw. These are the kinds of common mistakes that we see students coming down the pipe with. A lot of times, the rider coaches that I have that are really new, they tend to talk a lot, right? And they tend to always key into the exact same very, very unengaged things that we don't have to worry about. They're missing some of the gross errors. So I'm wondering how we can facilitate making it so that our rider coaches can recognize those gross errors that that many of our advanced rider coaches can do so easily.
Rider coach gross errors. I like that. How does that make you feel?
Oh, well, I already feel like this big every time I teach. So, it's like, I already feel like I'm missing so much. And I still feel that way even now as a coach. And after I've done this for so many years, I still sit there, and as I go and do development with other rider coaches, I still stand there and go, oh my gosh, look what I learned. Because there are things that I'm missing in my observations that I got to watch Chris on the range. I've got to watch different people here on the range. And for me, I see all of those opportunities as things for me to learn. But again, that's not something that everybody always gets. But if you threw a video up, and then you look at the rider coaches that are there and go, so what'd you see? What'd you see? What are we missing? What are you finding? What are you seeing that's happening? And, a lot of the experienced coaches that I used to work with, they would notice everything that was happening with the hands and the feet and everything in all of these different things, because that was what was built into old curriculum, right? So those of us who are newer baby coaches, we don't necessarily have all of those 20 million things that many of my very well-versed rider coaches did.
Yeah, but it's still in the rider coach guide. You just got to look for it.
Right. But okay, so then I understand that it's there, but what I'm saying is let's find a different way to present it so that not just me reading out of the rider coach guide is the only methodology of learning that somebody gets to use.
In my vision, I keep seeing that guy that we see the video from the QAS certification, the guy standing next to the braking chute, just throwing the fit of anger and yelling at people. If we had different episodes like that, maybe not the same type, but places where we could see those things happening, it may foster a great discussion.
I think
that it would.
I think coaches' abilities, though, to see errors, it isn't just a matter of them being trained what to look for. It really is a matter of them practicing, and it's something that you get better at with time because your brain does it as an executive function. It becomes automatic, and you're not thinking about it so much. It's kind of like when you learn how to read. You have to learn the letters, and the letters make syllables, and you sound them out and put it together. And I used to tell my car driving students, you're learning to read an intersection. There's the traffic light and the stop line and the two-way street and the this and the that. And now that you're learning it, you have to look at each of those things individually and kind of sound it out. But as you get better at it, your brain takes it in one big view and parses it out and prioritizes and filters, and it just gets better over time. So a lot of times I think what coaches need is just more time on task doing it to become more proficient at it.
But again, there's a lot of rider coaches who don't get that extra time. And what I'm saying is that, we're talking about people who have come through as rider coaches, have gone through training, and now are ready for another little level up in the game. So how do we provide that level up besides having them all stand on a range?
Two really good questions, and I don't want to let them pass. The first one is, what's the one word that covers everything you just said, Lynn, when it comes to the brain's executive functions and putting things in order.
Internalizing?
No, close. Begins with S.
Situational awareness?
No, it's SC. Think of it from motor skill development when we put things in sequence so that it works and becomes
Scaffolding.
what?
Scaffolding.
It's not scaffolding, but that's
No.
closer.
A little bit closer.
Structure?
Not quite, but closer. We're getting there.
Framework?
SCH.
Schooling?
Close.
Look, I'm
Every time somebody does a word.
Look,
What?
it's like spell check. We're doing like spell check where you type the first three and then what are the 4 words that come afterwards? I'm like, ah.
Wordy. We're playing wordy, man.
Then I'm thinking hangman. It's like, yeah, that's what it feels like.
It is, but that makes it fun, doesn't it?
I'm going to go with SIPTY.
No, not SIPTY, but SIPTY is one of these.
What?
Motor skill
Acronym?
development thing.
Schema?
Yes. Your brain's developing a sequence of doing something, and the more it does it, schema, it becomes automatic. We automaticate. I'm making up words now. It becomes automatic. And so when it becomes automatic, that unloads our executive functions to do other things.
Yeah, it's called internalization. You internalize it.
Internalization, but for motor skill and sequencing in order, it's called schema. So that's important. When it gets back to what Joanna's talking about, is there are some rider coaches that haven't done enough rider coaching to develop the schema of looking at the toes, the ankles, the knees, the hips, the shoulders, the arms, the head, and all that stuff. That, after years and years, man, I don't even think about it that way anymore. A rider passes by and I say, oh, look at their right thumb, they're doing this with it. And it's the schema has developed in an unnatural way. And their new rider coaches are like, how they do that? Oh, it's mad. It's PFM. It's PFN. But developing that schema is important. And this brings up a line of questioning, and I thank you for going here. For some reason, I keep losing my monitor tonight. I thank you for going here. So my question, Joanna, is how much is enough? Are we accepting coaches that do 1 or 2 courses a year? And is there any way they can develop a schema with that little time on the range?
No, I don't
That's
think so.
a loaded question.
I know when I was trained, we were taught when the rider comes towards you, you go in a sequence down: head, shoulders, torso, arms, hands, legs, feet, so that we always went that way. So we always were checking their body as they were coming down and seeing the motor skills that they were using. So many times I see rider coaches that send students out and their helmet is unstrapped. It's because they never looked at the student's head to determine that the strap is undone. So, when I'm teaching with those rider coaches, I always tell the students, okay, everybody look up at the sky before we do anything. Okay. So yeah, you're right. We learn the sequence. It's like when I tell my students, I want them to memorize the search categories of traffic control devices and roadway design features, other users, road and surface conditions, and escape paths. And I'm only saying that because I tell them that as you're going down the road, it's going to be constantly changing. You have to keep doing that as you're going down the road. And if you memorize that, when your brain subconsciously is looking for traffic control devices and roadway design features, you're pulling in stoplights, stop signs, divided highways, left turn lanes, right turn lanes, and they don't think about that. And then other users, you know, whatever it is, Bambi, cars, trucks, motorcycles. I said, but if you memorize that when you're going down the road, you're just going to be repeating that subconsciously, and you're going to lump all the category information into your brain, and you're going to see what that is. Okay. Not you're going to see it all at the same time, but if traffic control devices and roadway design features, you're going to look for all those related items in that category. Road and surface conditions, you know, is it concrete? Is it asphalt? Are there tar snakes? Is it wet? Is it snow? Is it, you know, whatever it is. So I think that's what helps rider coaches if they think that way. They think about the processes and then incorporate that process so that it's part of their nature.
And one of the things that I talk about too when I'm teaching is developing that motorcycle mindset, thinking about those things that you need to think about on two wheels that you don't even think about in four wheels, and then helping them to pick out some of these different things to at least become aware of it, and constantly doing that. And then when you're driving the car, doing the same thing, so you're getting a constant exposure and practice at doing it. Over.
I'm thinking of, you know, how much I do this, and my wife catches me while we're driving on the road, like when we go on a trip. You know, I see a motorcyclist go by, and my first intuition is I do a scan of, okay, how are they riding? Where are their feet? Where are their hands? Where are they looking? What's their body position? How fast are they going? Where are we at? You know, what's in front of them and how are they riding? And she looks at me and she goes, "You just can't let this shit go, can you?" But it becomes automatic. It's automaticity. And you do it
Hey, Don.
without thinking that you're doing it.
Hey, Don, what's even better is when your sibling or your spouse starts doing it along with you. And Carol Ann, on the 4 categories, I got a cheat for you. I use the acronym CORE for that: controls, others, roadway, escape path. I ripped off and duplicated that from Arizona.
Well, I find that, you know, to me, it's easier just to memorize what's in the book, what MSF is teaching, and for me, it works. So, but yeah, thank you for that.
Carol, the reason why your husband does it is because he's already developed a scan because of his profession. Because that's what I equate it to all the time.
Well, my sister does it too, and she does not ride a motorcycle.
Does she fly?
No, but we drive a lot. As a matter of fact, we're in the car right now, heading back to St. Louis from Georgia.
So what you're saying is you spend too much time together and you rub off on people.
Exactly.
Okay.
Lucky her.
I like the acronym CORE. I think that's ingenious.
I stole that from Mike Weiss.
Mark?
And he had Mark Weiss down in Arizona. I went down there to do some training with him, and he had a class where there were a Corps of Engineers, and they said there has to be an acronym for this, and that's what they came up with.
That makes sense.
And what does CORE stand for again?
Controls, others, roadway, and escape path.
Oh, got it. Thank you. That is good.
It just shortens everything down for them.
Yeah.
For me, I actually use the old game of head, shoulders, knees, and toes to remind students and other coaches of what to look for. Start from the top, working the way down: head, shoulders, knees, and toes.
I do the same thing. It keeps I'm always incorporating music into my classes. I don't, like I said, I don't know if anybody else has any of those little things.
Head, shoulders, knees, and toes.
Yeah, always incorporating any kind of music kind of things into the class. And the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star during the U-turn box works perfect. The cadence and the rhythm of it, the song, having them sing it out loud seems to, help them relax a little bit for some reason. But yeah, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in the U-turn box.
It also helps when you brush your teeth.
That's yes, head, shoulders, knees, and toes works very well when you're talking about getting ready to ride out.
Yeah, I'm always looking for shoelaces because that could be bad results. There's
I
always
think I have tied more shoelaces than a kindergarten teacher.
yeah,
Past
exactly.
3 years of my life, or the 5 years of my life, and I'm like, did you forget this class? Did they not teach you this in kindergarten? I mean, I have tucked more shoelaces and pants legs into boots and tied more shoelaces than I can get.
They use Velcro now.
And
Yeah,
the
they have
style
to do
is
that with
for
the Air Force guys and any of the others.
the style is for people not to tie their shoes. And if your boots aren't laced up, and frankly, sometimes even if they are coming off in a crash. And not necessarily on the range, but in real life. So I try to point that out to people. You really need to have your boots actually tied onto your feet.
I tell them if they're on the range learning, then they will make sure that they have their boots secured. What they do once they get off is up to them.
I've seen shoes where somebody had them laced up just fine, but they had a blowout on the shoe and the entire sole came off. It was just gone. And that's rough.
Well, you're a cyclops. You see things like that.
Now, Robin, I take it that wasn't an exercise 1, right?
More than once. Exercise 2, power walking across the range and the soles are flapping.
Flap, flap, flap.
Yeah.
No, it was during the eval. Yeah, it was during the eval. And they actually failed. Still got a good review. That was nice.
Say duct tape. Never leave home without it.
Oh, so I haven't picked on somebody tonight, and I want to. Jeff from Colorado. You've been quietly sitting back there in your nice little kitchen. Is there a challenge and support here, man?
No challenge and support. No, I'm just first off very unfamiliar with Zoom, so it took me a while just to figure out how to make things work on it. But and then I've got dogs and cats and all that stuff. They're trying to vie for attention over here.
It's all normal tribe talk stuff, man. It's okay. Relax. No
right.
excuse.
And I appreciate it, and I really want to catch into more of the tribe talks and feel like in the coming weeks, I'll be on here more.
You asked me a good question today, and I appreciate that, and I just wanted to recognize it. And that's what it comes down to is I'm a selfish guy, and I'm here to learn, and the best way I can learn is be around all these people.
Sure.
And
I understand.
So we challenge each other to be right, to be responsible, to have a little courage and speak up. So don't be a wallflower. You don't have to be. All right.
All right. I will keep that in mind.
All right. I just wanted to acknowledge you.
I appreciate it, Don.
Cool. Where are we? 8:49. We got 11 minutes. What's burning in your craw that you would like to talk about?
Could I interject something from a couple days ago?
Absolutely, Ron.
Mr. Bill from South Carolina just
Yes,
got
sir.
certified with three-wheel, and you said you cannot tip over a three-wheeler And I disagree with that because we had a gold wing flip over in the eval number 5. And please be careful if you're not using all Can-Am. If you're using all Can-Am vehicles, it's really tough.
It's all
If you're
Can-Am.
using, okay,
Yeah,
that's
we
why
just a Can-Am class.
Dan
You can
Schneider
tip
and
them
I both.
over.
You can
can
do
tip
more
over.
than tip them over too.
You can tip over a Can-Am.
You
Yeah.
can do all kinds of
Hey,
weird
I've
crap
seen
with them.
Hank almost do that 2 years ago.
I
Well,
think
I heard a couple
Jason
people
has,
say it could not happen, and please don't believe that.
no, it does happen. I think Jason's had it in every position possible.
Interesting.
Yeah. We've watched him bicycle it. Like that's
Well, to explain a little bit, the student went down the straightaway and made the corner, but didn't slow down. So they got 3/4 of the way around the corner and realized why they needed to slow down, but it was too late.
Was this the Goldwing track you were talking about though?
Yep.
Yeah, it's simple physics. If you throw all that inertia into a void, you know, a single wheel up front, 2 wheels in the rear, you take a hard corner. There's nothing but momentum going into a 0 point of inertia. There's nothing catching it. It's easy. This thing's tip all the dang time.
Well, I found it interesting when I first rode one because my brother has a Can-Am and I rented a Tri-Glide to practice for taking the RCP. And I was amazed how hard you can go into a corner and not fall over. I thought that was really interesting because I figured they'd fall over easier than that. And turns out they fall over pretty easy anyway. But just thought I'd bring that up, Bill. Just don't want you to go in with the wrong idea.
No,
Maybe that's why we don't have ATCs anymore.
I have one.
I had the same thing happen in a three-wheel class on a freewheeler. She went in too fast and applied the front brake.
So that
Luckily,
makes
she was
me feel
okay.
better because I thought I was the only one.
I need to express.
No,
this,
you're not.
and I know everybody's heard me say this before, but the 3-wheel course is the most dangerous course offered under the MSF curriculum because people are complacent. And I say this, I'm trying to think of how far I can go here. I was involved with a legal issue with a Can-Am within the last year, and I got to watch all the video and I got all the documents to research, and it was exceptional in the fact that this particular site had a video of everything from the point they started the class until the time of the incident and the follow-on recording after the incident happened. So I got a very good view. I couldn't hear anything, but as a rider coach, we developed observational skills. And I could tell a lot about what was happening and what wasn't happening. And there was a lot of complacency because it was a 3-wheel course. There were a lot of things, we're checking the box, but it wasn't fully checked. Things were let go. And I'm here to tell you, coaches make a big mistake. It is the most dangerous thing you could do to treat them without respect and to not follow the curriculum because bad things can happen and it can cost somebody's life. And I'll leave it.
I completely agree with that. I completely agree with that. I was trying to say this a few weeks ago about how I totally agree that it's the most dangerous because they become complacent so quickly. And I think I was trying to create some color in the conversation last time about how really it's more eventually if a person is going to try to find out at what point does this become dangerous, people start to relax while they're learning until they find out, oh, that's the threshold. I've now met the threshold for what is not safe in this class. I think that's something I've always been paranoid about trying to watch out for is when you feel like a person is becoming a little bit too relaxed. And it happens in every version of the course. I just think it happens. I think it happens more quickly in the 3-wheel class, especially if we aren't being attentive to the fact that it's just another motorcycle with 3 wheels instead. And yeah, and I always have that one student, at least one student, who is just, am I in danger yet? What about now? What if I ride backwards? You know, they're just trying to figure out what's going to get them hurt so they know where the line is, which has always been bizarre to me, but yeah.
Well, and we have coaches that get certified that don't ride a 3-wheeled motorcycle every day. So their experience with a 3-wheeled motorcycle, although they're coaching, is not in depth enough to know exactly what can go wrong and when. You know, I'm almost as old as Keith, so I can say, you know, I spent years on a 3-wheeled, you know, ATV, sliding it around corners and taking it over hills, probably a little bit faster than I should have. Still do it because I enjoy it, but there's also some risk involved with that, and we don't do it on the road.
You guys want some non-MSF story time for a second?
But
We've
hold on,
got 4 minutes.
I got a quick question for Don.
Yeah.
Was that from the MSF or the Evergreen
What do you mean,
when that 3-wheel incident occurred?
MSF?
Okay.
I know Evergreen had several as well, but this
Yeah,
particular,
because that's why Virginia got rid of it.
well, they got rid of it because Evergreen couldn't be insured anymore in Virginia. I mean, that was the bottom line at that particular time. It's since changed.
Well, I like that you brought up the fact that the coaches who are training the 3-wheel program should respect the students for their choice to ride a 3-wheeler. That was when we were doing the Can-Am demo rides. Some guy went with his friend. He wasn't going to go on the demo ride. He rolls up and he says, "Well, I would never do this." He's like, I ride a Ducati. I ride a Ducati, you know, whatever. I don't know if it was multi. I don't care. But I was like, oh, really? That's cool. Because I mean, by default, I'm usually on a sport bike of some kind. So, what have you done with that bike? Have you taken any tracks? He's like, he said, it's a really fast bike, and I'm super important and Ducati. I was like, oh, cool. Okay, so what track days have you done? Any track days on that thing? It's amazing. It was a Panigale. Amazing bike for that. Fantastic. You must be doing a lot. You know, are you a coach by any chance? He just went on like, no. I just use it for commuting. And so I let everybody. He was disrespecting everybody that was there for this ride. And so I just waited a minute. I said, oh, so it's not a fast bike because you're the one riding it. And he did not look happy, but it was fun watching him leave. That'll be the end of the conversation.
If nothing else, you certainly bring fun to conversations like that.
Yeah, screw that guy. These people were there to have a good time, and he was eager. He was like trying to chop them down. So,
see, now I know where Elon Musk gets it.
Yeah, I mean,
what?
He comes from the school of Robin Dean.
I don't have his bankroll. If I'm supposed to be able to tap into that,
I wish you did. We'd have some good times. I'd be hanging out with you.
And maybe a better looking truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it gets dented, you just go get a new Tesla.
God, when that, yeah. Are you talking about my truck or his truck?
Yours. And his.
Yeah.
His truck. Definitely his truck.
Well, his truck that's not the actual Cybertruck. That truck was a punchline, and then they released the actual truck next to it as a prototype, and it looked like a Toyota, like a 4Runner. So the Cybertruck was like a joke, and it just blew up into this, can you believe this kind of thing? And it was never going to be that.
Oh, it's that now. There's one driving around my town.
I mean, how do you use that for anything? It's a DeLorean put into a big machine.
Exactly. It's a statement. I have more money than sense.
Hey, listen, it's 9 o'clock. Guess what? my bedtime because I'm old
Same.
that way. Not quite as old as Keith. I don't know how he's making it.
I see you got your hat on, so you're ready to go.
You see that?
Nice.
Very nice.
Not that I ever worked for them or anything, but I had a good friend that hooked me up.
I got certified for them before I decided I didn't have time to do it. And Merry Christmas all. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll try to sneak one more in before Christmas, but no promises because I know I'm going to be on the road. Hey, Maurice finally made it right at the last second. Everybody say goodbye to Maurice.
Goodbye to Marie.
Maurice.
Bye, Maurice.
Maurice just forgot about the time change. Maurice, I can't take you anywhere.
Hey, but great discussions tonight. I think we touched on some really cool things, and who knows? Core. I got to think about that a little bit. For those of you who were here last night and volunteered for videos, I'll probably have something out to you tomorrow. It's a garage day, so in between the grease, I'll send you an email. Bill, was the instructions okay? Did he take off already? Damn it, missed him. All right. Thank you for being a member of the tribe. I love you all. Stay out of trouble. If I don't see you before Christmas, have a Merry Christmas. Spend it with ones that you love. And if you don't have anybody to love, find somebody to love. What's the song?
Can't be with the one you love, love the one you're with.
Oh God, I must be old.
Steven Stills.
Yes.
Not that old.
Have you ever heard him talk about that song? He regrets writing it. He says it caused him too much trouble.
Yeah, but how much money did it make him?
Well, true.
His wife loved it.
Yeah. All right.
You guys have a good night. Thank you, Don. Thanks,
No,
everybody.
thank you, Keith.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
God
Thanks,
bless.
guys.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. God
If
bless.
you don't,
Christmas.
if you want to invite somebody into the new group on Facebook, feel free to do so. All I ask is that you keep my work easy and make them rider coaches. Don't just put anybody in there. I appreciate it.
That takes away all the fun.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Don.
Good night.
Take care, everybody.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you for watching this episode of Tribe Talks, brought to you by RiderChoices. If you are a rider coach, you can catch other episodes by logging into www.riderchoices.com. You can also find links at the Rider Coach Live or Rider Coach Trainer Live Facebook groups. Remember, MSF's 5 core questions and survive the ride. Take care.